Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you for joining today's exclusive live webinar, which is the fourth episode of our Hong Kong Foundation's Insight Forum series. My name is Helen. I am a policy researcher in the field of arts innovation at our Hong Kong Foundation and your MC for this session. A very warm welcome to all guests and members of our Hong Kong Foundation, friends from the media, and members of the public joining us virtually today. A very kind reminder that our keynote speech will be followed by an approximately 30-minute Q&A session where we'll be taking questions put forward by our online audiences. Questions submitted in written form in both English or Chinese are equally welcome. For those joining us through Zoom, you may submit your questions through the chat room. Now, during the past year, Hong Kong has endured a remarkably challenging time, given the added effects of the COVID-19 pandemic following the prolonged social unrest against the backdrop of unsettling Sino-US tensions, which are showing recent signs of escalation, and, in addition to those, the impending introduction of the national security law in Hong Kong. On trying to navigate through precarious times, we are honoured to have, as our keynote speaker today, the seasoned entrepreneur, Dr. Alan Zeman, chairman of Lan Kwai Fong Group, renowned for his undisputed contribution in public affairs, tourism, and in cultural, creative, as well as entertainment arenas, who will share with us his insights on the city's staying power to overcome the host of imminent challenges on both local and external fronts. So without further ado, may I invite the man who needs no introduction, Dr. Alan Zeman.
Thank you very much. I'm just wearing a mask because politically correct, and that's what's helped Hong Kong to be one of the best places in the world to live right now with this COVID-19. But in speaking earlier, I had a quick bite with Eva Chang, and Eva actually said I should tell you a little bit of my initial story of coming maybe as an inspiration to many, many young people who kind of are lost right now and don't know what the future holds for them. I came to Hong Kong when I was 19 years old, and basically I came. My dad died when he was 50 years old. I was a young boy. I can't honestly say I don't really remember much of him, maybe one or two things, and basically that kind of gave me the strength to become very adult, very mature at a very, very young age. I think I was 7 or 8 years old at the time. And I always started working at a very young age. While I was going to school, I was in what they called the brain class, the top class in the schools at the time. But don't tell anyone, I didn't like to study. But I always got very good marks. And when I graduated, I was already making more money than my teachers at the time. And I just by accident wound up in the fashion industry. And I see we have some fashion people here today. In essence, for me, I came to Hong Kong because Hong Kong was the factory to the world at that time. Every factory was here, Sampo Kong, Kwun Tong, Kwai Chung, Tai Kok Choi, you name it. And that's where I grew up, walking the factory buildings at the time. But Hong Kong was very, very different. It was a can-do place. Everyone in Hong Kong, all the tycoons today, started like I did. You could have a dream at night in Hong Kong, make it a reality. At that time, no government interference. Everything was can-do. Very, very different than what we are experiencing today, unfortunately. But it's the same place. And I started a company at that time. I started exporting garments, sweaters to Canada at the time. And at my first year in business, I made $1 million profit. And I'm not coming from a rich family. I thought, oh, I'm rich. I sat down with the accountants in Canada. I was living in Montreal at the time. And I said, I have a check for $1 million. They said, not so fast. I said, why? They said, you got to pay tax. I said, tax? You're kidding. How much? And they said to me, approximately at that time around 50%, 50. I thought, 50%? You're kidding. Who gets the tax? Socialized medicine, socialize this, socialize that. Someone's got to pay for it. So now I thought to myself, wow, $500,000, still a lot of money to a 19-year-old. I said, okay, I'll have a check for $500,000. They said, not so fast again. I said, why? You got to pay tax again. I just pay tax. That's corporation. You could declare a dividend for personal tax at a lesser rate. It was something like, I wound up with something like $425,000 in my pocket. Still a lot of money to a 19-year-old, but I was in Hong Kong on a buying trip, and at that time, my buying office was Swire McLean, and Lydia Dunn, who at that time was the first female CEO in Hong Kong, she was the person I worked with. And I said, what's the tax in Hong Kong? They told me 15%, 1-5. I said, 15%? You're kidding. How many years do I want to make $1 million? I thought, I don't have to work so hard for the government. Little did I know I'd work harder for the government today here than if I would have stayed in Canada. But I decided to move to Hong Kong, and at that time, very few people knew where Hong Kong was. When I told my late mother I wanted to move to Hong Kong, she said, you want to move to Japan? Because everything was made in Japan. I said, no, it's China, Hong Kong. It was even worse. Oh, the communists, my son, all the stories. But I came here, and there was no turning back. I've been here for more than 50 years now, probably 52 years. I was just calculating. I stopped counting. I've seen all the changes taking place in Hong Kong. I've been here when the British were here. I was here at the handover during 1997. Believe it or not, I was invited by Prince Charles on the Britannia, the last sailing when he sailed out, and I had lunch with him, and just about it was about 8 people at that time. It was the last lunch. And so I've really built kind of a career here, and my life is like living in a storybook. That was the benefit of what Hong Kong did for me, because Hong Kong was attracting people from all over the world, businesses from all over the world. If you could succeed in Hong Kong, to me, you can succeed anywhere else in the world. But the thing was that I noticed, because I was in the fashion business, when the service industries were coming in, when Hong Kong became too expensive, factories were moving into China. So, of course, I had no choice. I had to go to China. And I went to China probably about 40 years ago. I had my first office in Changsha, Hunan, which was a place that the reason I once asked Mr. Tung one time when he was chief executive, he heard the story. He said, why did you choose Changsha of all places? Well, in those years, that was where the birthplace of Chairman Mao. And I thought to myself, that was head office in China at the time, so I may as well go right to head office. And basically, I saw the changes taking place in China. I saw everything that was going on from a country that was kind of very backward at the time. I watched the changes within the system, how the life of the people got better and better. And I was here, of course, during the time when Deng Xiaoping, I still remember Deng Xiaoping going to Shenzhen and saying at that time, it was all field there. And he said, this is going to be a special economic zone. And I thought to myself, special economic zone? I said, don't want to say this, he was crazy. I thought, there's no way. But yet, today we look at Shenzhen, and it's probably one of the most modern cities in the world, overtaken Hong Kong, but don't tell anyone. And basically, and it's the same thing, I was in Shanghai at the time when Zhu Rongji was there. And Zhu Rongji was pointing across to Pudong and saying that's going to be the new financial district for China, for Shanghai. And again, it was all field. And I said, it's impossible. But yet, today, you go to Pudong and you see all the buildings and everything there, and you think, my God, it's really unbelievable what has gone on. So I watched the changes taking place in China. And being here during the handover, during 97, Chris Patton at the time was a friend, and I used to argue a lot with him and his wife and Lavender at the time about China, because I saw the beauty in how China was operating and how they were changing the life of the people, becoming better. And they couldn't see it because they're politicians. And I think For them, the time was not to. I learned one thing: political people only say what works for them, not really what's good for their people, or it's all about staying in power, unfortunately, and not just everywhere in the world. It's like that. Once you get into power, power goes to people's heads. And I've always tried to keep my feet on the ground. I've watched the changes taking place in Hong Kong. I've watched 97, post-97, people were nervous. Oh, we're going back to China. I remember doing many, many interviews with the foreign press at the time because I had that guilo face, and they all wanted to come and interview me. And many thought the tanks from China were lined up, and the stroke of midnight, they're coming across the border, and everybody in Hong Kong is going to be in handcuffs. And I said to them, you guys are crazy. You don't understand what is going on in China. They don't want to take back Hong Kong. They need Hong Kong. China needs a place like Hong Kong, a city like Hong Kong, whereby they can, that was the gateway to the world because they were opening up, and also the gateway from the world to China. So Hong Kong had they were the middleman in between both sides. And that was always the strength of Hong Kong. We became the service industry. The financial sector became one of the stalwarts of our industry. Number one, Hong Kong Stock Exchange, the exchange, is third in Asia. It's become a place where everyone will want to list, companies want to list. Don't tell anybody again. The best thing for the mainland companies, that many of them got barred from the US market right now because the President of the United States decided that politically it's not right to have them on the US Stock Exchange. But where are they coming? To their home, Hong Kong. Alibaba, Tencent, so many have returned back to Hong Kong. Baidu, they're all coming here because this is the place. And that's one of the strengths of Hong Kong. And so I've watched the goings-on that happened the last number of years. And it's been very, very traumatic. It's like watching a parent watching their children go astray. I understand the problems we face. Hong Kong has a lot of problems. Basically, the number one problem is the housing problem that we face. People live in very tight quarters, small quarters. Many people are waiting 6 or 7 years to move into a house, a flat from the government. And you know, when you don't have hope, you have nothing. People strike out when they don't have hope. And that's something that is very, very important. Everybody must feel I have a future. If I don't have a future, I fight. And that's something that we can see. It's not just Hong Kong. That's happened around the world. We can now see, going back to the Occupy Central days, which doesn't seem so far away. I think it was 2014. But what has happened in the United States today? United States, the last few weeks, 20 days now, 21 days, people have been striking, people have been marching, not unlike what happened during the protests in Hong Kong. And Occupy Central, even today, before I came here, I was watching the news in the US. Seattle, Washington, they have 6 blocks that are closed off right now. It's a no police zone. No police are allowed to go in there. And you have young people all having parties and enjoying themselves, not unlike the Occupy Central at the time. So history repeats itself. It's something that is really, really, I see all the things going on in the US today are things that we faced during the protests last year. Hong Kong itself, you had young people that feel lost. They live in tight quarters. They graduate from university. They don't see a future for themselves. It's too expensive. All these laws, all these obstacles that we have at the moment, it's not because China changed our life. These were a carryover. One country, two systems was something that Deng Xiaoping came up with because people were nervous. I still remember pre-97, everybody was nervous. Oh my God, the British are leaving and the Chinese are coming to take us over. But, you know, human nature is such that no one likes change. People don't trust change. That is something that is human to everyone. Even in your life, in your personal life, when you have change, you panic. And this is exactly what's happened to many, many people in Hong Kong, because the one country, two systems at the time was the right thing. All these laws that we have right now were carryovers from the British days. The high land prices were the auctions were invented by the British. The low tax was another form of the high auction prices were a form of taxation for Hong Kong people. But what happens is it doesn't look after everyone. The Hong Kong government in the old days were laissez-faire, hands off. Market forces will dictate. It doesn't work. You can't just have market forces dictating because it separates the rich from the poor and it causes class distinction. Not unlike, and I keep going back to the US, because everybody looked at brand US. That was the thing that everybody wanted to be. I want to go to the United States. I want to see they have such a great society and everything. But yet, look what's happened. Look at the class distinction between blacks and whites. Black Lives Matter. This suddenly has come to the forefront under a president like President Trump, because he wants to, it's America first, destroy everything that was built over centuries, over years. WTO, we don't need it. G7, we have G9, you name it, everything that's traditional doesn't work. But instead of looking at the problems that US faces, and they have very, very, very serious problems, but so does Hong Kong. But yet you had young people that were led astray. Some were, and I know they say foreign forces, whatever. Do we have proof? Some say Taiwan, some say US, NED, National Endowment for Democracy. You hear so many different stories. But the one thing I know, the US didn't help Hong Kong in any way, because every time the so-called, I don't want to call them dissidents, but people who didn't agree with the government, they would go to the United States. Joshua Wong believes in what he believes. Martin Lee, Anson Chan, so many names that went to the United States to be welcomed by the Jimmy Lai, welcomed by the Vice President. Why would the Vice President meet these people of the United States? Why? Because politically, it was good. It's against China. They don't care about the people from Hong Kong going over. I live there. I know it. It's about politics. Or Nancy Pelosi welcoming with open arms. We're going to help you. Yes. All those things. During the protests, there were fighting going on in Hong Kong on the streets. The front line was getting paid. Many of the reporters are my friends. And they were telling me they were covering the front line people, and trucks, lorries were pulling up, unloading masks, unloading helmets, unloading all the things, laser lights, and then passing it up to the front line, who would get paid and go and destroy things, shops. The economy of Hong Kong was suffering. People were afraid to go out. This was not Hong Kong that I grew up in. My family many times didn't want to go out because the streets were blocked, or there was other. I myself was sitting even in the Lan Kwai Fong area, sitting, sometimes had to wait till the protesters would leave the area. And so this was not Hong Kong, but yet Occupy Central. I remember going down myself with the students, with the young people, and I could see the confusion. I could see the problems. we have let them down. We really did. The one thing, the biggest mistake we did was that after 97, the education system fell very, very badly behind. Every nation in the world, every country in the world has not just national studies. I remember as a kid growing up, sometimes when I was in the States, I had to salute the flag and put my hand on my chest and sing the Star-Spangled Banner. When we moved to Canada, when my father died, I used to salute the flag every morning, the British flag, and sing God Save the Queen. But yet in Hong Kong, after 97, when we went back to China, what happened? No, we decided to have liberal studies, so teachers could teach whatever they wanted. You need regime, you need rules and regulation. Man is not an animal. We must have rules and regulations. That brings some stability to you. You know who you are, what you are. I still remember after 97, most of the young people, and my business is all young people, I don't know if I'm Chinese, I don't know if I'm Hong Kongese, I don't know if I'm British, I don't know if I'm American. Everybody had a mixed identity. And then the divisions got more and more. And we can see during the British days in LegCo, everyone just rubber stamped. All those people that now are causing many problems in Hong Kong, they were there. Everything was fine, just rubber stamp. The governor said, let's do it, and we did it. But after the handover, everyone started questioning because it was a Chinese leader, and maybe China was behind it. And the worry about their life, about life under China. Most Hong Kong people have never been back to China, have never seen what's going on. They still remember Tiananmen Square. They still remember the young students standing in front of the tanks, that picture that the media keeps showing when you go back to Tiananmen Square. But China today is one of the leading countries in the world. That is what the US is so worried about. That's why the US keeps bashing China and Hong Kong, unfortunately, gets caught. We're like the ham in between the two sandwiches, between China and the US. And so bash Hong Kong, because in essence, you're bashing China. Again, it's political. Do they care about Hong Kong? In essence, if they take away our special tariffs and whatever, who are they hurting? They think they're hurting China, but they're hurting Hong Kong people. All these people that trust the US, you're just hurting yourself and hurting the people. So I look at things and I think now everybody's worried about a security law coming. Now, why is there a security law coming? I've been quite close with the Chinese government. I've been speaking to them, and I understand what are the reasons. The main reason is these protests, China was hands-off when these protests came about, and they let the police handle it. And the police, who are usually used to giving parking tickets and they're not an army, they had to learn very quickly. When the new police chief came in, when Chris Tang came in, he did a marvelous job by getting leadership again back with even the police themselves knew they now have a good boss, a new leader. They can feel confident. And I know they got a really bad name. Again, I did interviews with the foreign press, and of course, it was within their interest. It was a good story if you can just bash the police, how bad the police did things. But then, there is a God, I believe, the US, just watching the protests in the US. I mean, my God, see what the police did? I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. That thing keeps going through everybody's mind. Black people were being pummeled, killed by police officers. Hong Kong had no deaths from the police. But yet, the media painted such a bad picture because these young people with different ideas, I don't want to call them dissidents, would paint a picture, and politically, it just made sense. I kept telling the press, they thought with my foreign face, I'm going to talk bad about China and about the police. But I said I can't, because honestly, they're doing as good a job as they could at the time, and they're learning on the job. They're not an army. The US, when they had a problem, they called the National Guard in, they called the Secret Service, they called the police, they called everybody in. Even though it's not lawful to call in the National Guard and whatever, and the president then found out they had to leave. But we don't have that ability. Yes, we have the PLA, we have the PAP, but again, China would get criticized if they came in here. So they stayed away. What brought the security law on? Article 23, for 23 years, we have not been able to pass a security bill. And yes, there's always been a backlash about Article 23. We can't do it. LegCo is so divided, no way that we can pass it through. So what happens? It's not going to happen. Macau, on the other hand, was able to pass in 2009 a security law, and nothing's happened. Macau, things go on as normal. I'm there all the time. Well, I'm chairman of one of the hotels there, and nothing goes wrong. People's lives are the same. But in Hong Kong, what really prompted China to act, number one, we couldn't pass the Article 23, especially after the extradition treaty, which was Carrie Lam's idea, the chief executive's idea, but in the end went on for too long and caused everybody's anger to boil up. And so suddenly, the security law comes along because in the last few months, the police have made arrests of 15 different times of explosives, bombs being made. This is very serious. That's terrorism. And without a security law, our laws are not good enough to handle that. And so, you have foreign interference in some instances. How would China like it? How would the US like it if during these protests that they have, some of the US people went to China to complain about the US? How would they feel? Same thing. You just think of the reverse, how two-faced these people are. And I'll probably get my head chopped off because I'm talking like this, but I don't mind. It's always been my style. I say what I feel. And you as individuals should also be the same. But if we conduct ourselves in the right way, we will be able to overcome everything. United we stand, divided we fall. It's an old saying in every country. And we have to work together, but we have to solve the housing problem. If people have a good house, have a good job, have a good future for their families, they love the government, they love China, they love everything, because my life is good. The mainland tourist today is the #1 tourist in the world. Every country in the world. I have hotels in Thailand. Everyone caters to the mainland Chinese because they're the #1 customer. And so their life has gotten better and better and better. In many cases, better than Hong Kong. And I know the US and some of the other countries talk about human rights in China and talk about Xinjiang and all these areas. But when you have 1.4 billion people, you need to have a strong government. Otherwise, you have dissension. You have what's happened in Hong Kong with 7.5 million people. We had anarchy the last year. The police didn't matter anymore. Only now are we starting to feel more comfortable. The security law that will come in is something that will help Hong Kong. China is not about to hurt Hong Kong. It'll be mirrored on our common law system. China has a civil law system, which is different, but basically some similarities where you're proved innocent until you're found guilty. Both systems are the same. They brought it into Macau. It hasn't changed Macau. The devil will be in the details. But of course, because of all this yellow and blue and all this rhetoric between sides, certain people have said, oh, it's the end of Hong Kong. I saw Fortune magazine in 1997. The front cover was the death of Hong Kong. Well, I've been here 23 years later. We're still very much alive, whether we like it or not. I see a great future for Hong Kong. I really do. The Greater Bay Area, 70 million people, 1.5 trillion GDP, 1.5 to 2 hour radius by high-speed rail to Hong Kong, 11 cities. Hong Kong will have a very special place for that. Whether you like it or not, it's happening. For young people, for old people, you'll have more space, more land. You'll have better jobs. You can be the next unicorn. You can have an idea. The market is so great. The whole world wants to get into the China market. We're right on the doorstep. We're part of it. Don't throw it away. Look at the other countries that had the brands. Brand USA has gone down and down and down. And again, I'm not saying, oh, China's the best place in the world. Every country has problems. Go to Europe, go to the UK. Everyone has problems. But working together, we can solve those problems. And so I really feel security law coming. Let's wait till the details come out, and you'll see. You'll be pleasantly surprised. Yes, some people will try to twist it to make it feel, oh, I'm not safe. But you know what? They've said it very, very clearly. If you want to break the law, you have to worry about it. Me, I don't want to break the law. So I don't worry. And that's why I said, when they wanted me to talk, I say I believe in the future of Hong Kong. Why? I'm not planning on breaking the law, so I don't have to worry. And if you are the same, trust me, you don't have to worry as well.
Thank you, Dr. Simeon, for such a powerful and honest and genuine sharing. I'm afraid, in the interests of time,
yes,
we have to move on to the second part, which
no
is
problem.
the Q&A session. And thank you to all those who have submitted questions. We have received quite a number of them. Let me begin with one from Apple Daily, and it goes like this. Hong Kong people, especially the young generation, are looking for freedom,
yes,
human rights, and democracy, which
correct,
are fading out in the city. How do you think implementation of national security law is accurately addressing these social demands?
Okay. Basically, I can understand, now I've heard many publications, many newspapers, including Apple Daily, talking about young people losing their freedom, young people losing their future. There, I happen to disagree, because if they remember back, turn the clock back and go back to when the British were here, we have more freedom today than we had when the British were here. And I experienced both. People can go out, you can still say what you want. Apple Daily is very free to publish whatever they want. Social media, we have access to Google, Facebook, all the other social media things. What freedom do you not have? Yes, the system is that you're saying universal suffrage. We don't have universal suffrage. Well, we had a conditional universal suffrage a few years ago that was on the cards, but yet many LegCo members decided, oh, it's not right. It was wrong, and many pan-Democrats now tell me that was a mistake, because by voting it down, because it was a baby step forward. And it doesn't necessarily mean that universal suffrage really works. Leadership, country systems are all about making the life of the people better. How you get there, China's system with 1.4 billion people works because of the size of the population, and the people have really have a much better life. And if you go to China, it's just unbelievable what is going on there. It's a miracle. And so that's why I don't agree that we are under our freedoms being curtailed. I honestly feel the security law will be here to help businesses. During the protests, many businesses went out of business. And especially with the COVID-19 now, it was back-to-back, 2 punches. And so I think that the security law will, if nobody is going to break the law or worry about secession, foreign interference, all these things that are now being taken up. I guarantee you, Apple Daily, you have nothing to worry about. You'll be able to say, be a good boy, you'll have nothing to worry about. Same as in the U.S. If you did what you wanted to do in the U.S., trust me, you would have a lot of problems as well.
Thank you. The next question is from RTHK.
Yes.
Mr. Zeman, do you truly think that young people are protesting simply because they have no hope, e.g. housing problems, and not social injustice? Many people say the government's unwillingness to listen, the police's abuse of power, the clampdown on the education systems, the suppression of the pro-democracy camp are all to blame. Do you think these problems need to be properly addressed by the administration?
100%. I agree with that. I agree that the administration has been very lax, and not just this administration. From 1997, the system needs to be overhauled. I believe, as I've said earlier, that one country, two systems is a very good idea, but really needs to be looked at and see how it can be improved, how laws can be improved. And of course, people everywhere in the world, I can tell you right now, there's divisions between societies. U.S. has, and I'm sorry for going back to U.S., but they have the Democrats and Republicans. Mm-hmm. They can't see eye to eye on anything, and so that's with universal suffrage or with their system. The U.K. is no different. I mean, and I can go through every country, and so I really do not believe that they can't be solved. But we do have to sit down. The government needs to sit down. I believe China really wants to help Hong Kong. They need Hong Kong. They earn a lot of money through Hong Kong. If we don't have Hong Kong, they'll create Shenzhen or another place. Mm-hmm. They need a Hong Kong. And so there's no reason. They don't need another 7.5 million people. So RTHK and everybody else, if we work together and together with the government, and the government does have problems, they need to listen as well to make people's lives easier.
Thank you. The next question is from a member of our audience. The question is, what is your advice to youngsters on facing the challenge ahead and not asking them not to be against the Hong Kong SAR or even the PRC government? I
think it goes more than that. I think youngsters today don't see a future for themselves. And I think that the government needs to take the first step forward to show that we're doing things to help to show a way forward. We need a plan to show the way forward. Maybe it's bringing housing prices down. Maybe it's giving them more hope, jobs, many things, that we have today. And I think that's, listen, we're only 23 years, we're babies within politics. And I think that we need to really learn how to work together, live together. And so I honestly feel that for young people, I don't blame them because they don't see they don't think somebody's listening. Many times the government says that they're not listening. And again, I'll go back to the black community in the United States. Why are they rioting? Why are they being out there protesting? Because they feel the same thing, that nobody's listening to them. And I'm a second-class citizen. Nobody likes to have that. So we need to be equal on all bases, an equal opportunity for everyone.
Thank you. The next question is again from a member of our audience. Any chance you could give more advice on the future operation of our ocean park as former chairman?
I mean, obviously Ocean Park is very dear to me. It's like watching your kid grow up and then suddenly running into difficulty. One thing made me very, very happy when Ocean Park opened this past Saturday, even though it was raining and typhoon, and tropical storm. But the media, some of the feedback that came back from young people, many people, very positive. I'm so happy to be back here. I missed it so much. The rides, I missed the rides, I missed the animals, everything about it. And all those comments were wonderful. And I knew that time that LegCo made the right decision by giving them the money. But of course, the park needs help right now. Number one, the $3 billion that's owed to the Bank of China, I think that needs to be paid back. That'll alleviate a lot of the interest and principal that the park was paying. The other thing that I feel we really need to sit down and create a strong chairman, a strong chief executive, a strong management team, like I did. I didn't know anything about the theme park business, but yet I put a strong management team around me, and together we were able to strategize. And that's something, people who really come from the theme park world, theme park business, it's a totally different world. I didn't know anything about it, but I learned by having people who were in that. Sir Tom Merman, my CEO, was American, and he's now in Beijing opening up the Universal Park that they're spending $8 billion on. And so I know, unfortunately, it became political football, the granting of the money. If you look at other areas like West Kowloon, I was on that, I'm still on that, the money that was poured into that, and I hate to tell you, I don't know if we're going to be seeing a profit, because culture, unfortunately, I call it a necessary evil. Not evil, but it's a necessary thing, and governments have to be in that. Same thing with the theme park. I think we have to look at technology. We need to upgrade the park, not spend a lot of money, but there's ways to tweak it to make it very, very exciting. Again, with AR, VR, wearing glasses, walking into the aquarium and feeling you're swimming with the sharks, or give you experiences that if you're on a ride, the experience can be 10 times the fear, the fright. The old. Well, not Pokemon is gone, but I mean, games, instead of throwing balls and winning a big fluffy doll, they now have everyone's busy on their computers playing games. So bringing it up to, I always look at my customer. Who's my customer? What's their habits? And I came out of the fashion business. What are you going to be wearing next year, the year after? And so I look at the customer. Every young person today has their phone in their hand, and they're busy playing games and doing other things. And so you have to know that that's what they like. So make it much more relevant to today's world. Not just Ocean Park, but all theme parks in the world need to do that. They need to change because the customer base has changed, their tastes.
Thank you. I'm getting another question concerning the national security law.
Of course.
This is from HK01. What is your opinion towards national security law? Will it affect the one country, two systems?
I believe that every country in the world has national security law, and I think that the idea is, as I said, because China was worried about all the kind of terrorism that was happening and all these misguided protests and whatever. I think that it was time, because we wouldn't pass Article 23, it was time to pass the security bill. Do I think that it'll affect us? Honestly, no. I think once it happens, it's kind of like the co-location. I still remember the co-location, which is at West Kowloon, where many people were saying, oh my God, the Chinese immigration is going to be on Hong Kong soil, and people are going to get kidnapped and get sent to China. We know it, and I remember the fear of everybody at the time. Well, I used that co-location immigration point many, many times going to China, and it's the most convenient thing in the world, and no one has gotten kidnapped, and it's a non-event. I believe the same thing is going to happen with the security law. Now, people generally hate change, and they're always afraid of change, and so, of course, they're not sure what's going to happen, but I guarantee you the devil is in the details. Yep. And China understands the worry that people have. And so there will be a few things, but every man has to live within laws. And once we know what the parameters are, you live within it, and it won't bother you. And you'll go on with your life, and you'll go on meeting your girlfriend, your boyfriend, and going out, enjoying yourself, without worrying about all the other things. And so it's become, the problem is Hong Kong has become so divided, and because of many social media sites, and it really inflames things that are ridiculous in some cases that don't just make sense. But unfortunately, young people believe, if it's on social media, it has to be fact, it has to be true. Not just here, but everywhere in the world it's like that. And so it's really something that we will grow out of, I hope. And as they get older, they'll understand. And of course, they'll have their own problems with their children. But this is a generation that we really need help. And the government really needs to look at how we can help the young people and old people as well, everyone in general. The system needs an overhaul.
Thank you. We have another question from Apple Daily. The question goes like this. People in Hong Kong are planning to immigrate, showing that they lose hope in the city.
Correct.
Anything you want to say to those who want to leave and those who want to stay?
Yeah, I want to say one thing. I went through this in 1997. Many, many people, and I'll go back even further, Tiananmen Square. I went through then. Many, many people emigrated to Canada, where I come from. Many, many people emigrated to Australia, to the US. And I remember a few years later, after 97 and whatever, they were in places like Canada. They put their kids there, but they had a hard time earning a living. Didn't have, and their relatives that stayed behind were doing very, very well and making a fortune. And suddenly, I can tell you just from Lan Kwai Fong, many, many people were coming back, and many people who emigrated suddenly came back to Hong Kong. Some left their kids there because they thought the school system is better. And they do have very good schooling, both in the US and Canada. And so I can say to most those people that you are free to go if you want. UK is now talking about BNO passports again and giving the right of people to go for 12 months and other countries, again, because of politics, it looks good for their people to get reelected again. But I say to you, I've been here over 50 years, and I've only prospered here. And I can tell those people that want to stay here, you're next to the country that is the future of the world, not in a negative way. So even Apple Daily, I can say to you that you'll be able to operate, and Hong Kong won't change. You'll be able to say what you want as long as it's within the law, and which is the same in the US, the same everywhere. So don't worry. People will always emigrate. Some people always think the grass is greener on the other side. Those that stay behind, what I've always found, they make the best of what they have. And especially with China and the success of China, and if you go there and if you really know what's going on, I have businesses there. They've done okay. Is the system easy? Not necessarily, but it's not easy in many. In Thailand, I've got businesses. I've got businesses in other countries. There's different laws, and I just have to operate within the law. And sometimes you realize how much easier Hong Kong is, but then you see the high land prices, and maybe it's not so easy. So everything has pluses and minuses. So I can't tell you. All I can tell you is those that stay behind, don't worry about a thing.
Thank you. The next question is from a member of the audience. People talk about the new normal after COVID-19. What would be this new normal for the tourism, food, and beverage sectors?
Well, COVID-19 has been a huge problem for not just Hong Kong, but for the world. Airline business, as we know, is non-existent right now. People have fear. People are afraid to get on an airplane. The good thing about Hong Kong, we've only had 4 deaths, and the government's done a great job, really, in containing it. Why? Because we all wear masks in Hong Kong. If you look at other places around the world, they don't wear masks. They're not disciplined like the Hong Kong people are. And I really take my hat off to, if I wore a hat, to all the people here. And that has really, really helped. But going forward, I believe that this testing is going to be, and hopefully they can have tests that, it's like when you go on an airplane. In the old days, before the terrorists started bringing down aircraft, we used to just get on an airplane, just get our boarding pass, give the ticket, and just get right on the plane. Then suddenly, after planes were downed, we had to suddenly go through security and get pat down and all the other things with security. I believe the same thing is going to happen with taking a test before you get on an airplane, so that because otherwise many people will not fly. I'm worried about who I'm sitting next to because, okay, I'm taking care of myself, but I don't know where you've been. I don't know if you have the virus or not. But if everybody has to take the test, and hopefully it's a 1-minute test that everybody will have to go through, and I guess the tests will become shorter and shorter, then everybody on the airplane is the same as you, it will not test positive. And so it's slowly getting used to. It's like now wearing masks when you go to restaurants or going to clubs, and, you know, and the social distancing, 1.5 meters. All these things are like the new norm. It's kind of like the security going at the airport, you know. And so I think this is something, economies work when people are confident and they're spending money. And without tourism, we're dead. Not just us, but everyone in the world needs tourism to balance out your economy and creates jobs. And the faster we can get back to feeling safer and opening up the borders and really not having to worry about the transmission, and maybe with a vaccine will come up eventually, and that will help to solve things. Or maybe it'll just, I've seen reports where 65% of the population of the world needs to be infected before the COVID-19 will go away, kind of like SARS. You know, it kind of blew itself off, you know, without any vaccine. So we're in this very troubled time at the moment, and we just have to live with it, no choice.
Thank you. And actually leading into the next question from our audience member, it goes like this. Could you please clarify more details on how young people make use of opportunities in the Greater Bay Area? So how young people should make use of more opportunities?
Well, it's a good question, but I think where the governments have been weak at the moment, I know they're still working on things, because it's not just Hong Kong, it's 11 cities, and it's China really leading the drive, but I guess COVID-19 has kind of sidelined a lot of the plans. I think that eventually young people, depending on the border, will become porous. I think that you'll be able to go back and forth more easily, and young people, because with a population of 70 million people, there's great opportunity. Just close to home, you can stay in Hong Kong and open a business across the border and literally earn a fortune, because Hong Kong is 7.5 million people. It's very difficult to earn money unless you have a huge tourist population that comes here that are able to do retail, you know, to look after the retail business and other businesses. So I think the integration between Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area will suddenly become, it's kind of like Silicon Valley did in the United States, or New York City, the Bay Area, or Tokyo, which is a Bay Area. The integration will become much greater, and so there'll be opportunities. Some people want to move to the Greater Bay Area, live in Shenzhen, or live in Guangzhou, or you know, or one of the places. Even Macau is changing. You know, every area is changing. So it depends what field you're in and what field you want to go into, you aspire to go into. And I think at that point, for young people, it's huge opportunity, and probably be a lot cheaper than Hong Kong itself. And hopefully prices will come down in Hong Kong, and you can have a much better life with more space.
Perfect, thank you. I'm getting more questions concerning Ocean Park.
Yes.
So this is from an audience member. How should Ocean Park reposition itself in order to sustain its business in the long term, given intense competition from similar theme parks in the Greater Bay Area?
Well, you know, competition has always been there, even when I was the chairman. You know, and I know there's new theme parks that have opened and opening up. Disney in Shanghai, Universal open Beijing, Ocean Kingdom in Hengqin Island, across. You know, Ocean Park has the uniqueness of the location where they are, overlooking Deepwater Bay. One of the views is magnificent. The cable car, the high-speed rail, you know, that goes between the two lands. I think that it has the ability. You don't have to worry about competition. One thing I know, if you have a good product, you have to be unique. We need to really, it's about conservation, educating, sends very good messages on the animal thing, but also we have the rides, which the combination is very strong. When I was there, okay, I'm not saying I used to dress up in crazy costumes. I'm not saying that I did it because it was free advertising. especially in places like Apple Daily or other places. They want that picture for free. We didn't have money to do advertising, so I had to rack my brain to see how we could compete with Disney. And so there is opportunity, good opportunity, to really make the park once again. It is a little jewel. And I know I've heard the criticism, oh, it's just for mainlanders, and that's the problem, and local people don't want to go. I could tell you, when I was there, 2012, 40% of our attendance out of 4 million people was local, and 60% were from tourists. And when you do a park, you don't do it for tourists. You do the park for locals. If locals like it, then tourists will come. And so I always geared towards the local market. Halloween, all those events that we did was always for the locals. And then if tourists came, it was a bonus. And that's exactly how the park needs to be addressed. If you have the right management, the right team, I guarantee you, it's a little jewel. And location-wise, Mother Nature gives you that mountain and the water and everything for free. And so make use of it. I mean, there is really a hidden treasure. We're also opening a water park. It'll be finished construction at the end of this year, 2 years late, but it's the best in the world. I've been there. I've been an advisor for it. It's unbelievable, the water park. When young people see it, they'll be so excited about it. And we have a new hotel, a Fullerton Hotel, that's under construction at the moment. You have the Marriott Hotel. So you've got a real package to sell, to really integrate everything, maybe with combined tickets or that kind of thing, so that you don't have to worry about all the other. Yes, you don't have to worry about all the competition. It just makes you better.
Thank you. The next question is from Metro Finance, again concerning the national security law.
Yes.
Do you think the national security law would undermine Hong Kong's status as a business hub?
Yeah. I honestly don't, because I think I've heard that question many, many times. And I say to you again, the devil is in the details, and again, it's the apprehension, the bill is coming, but it's going to be with us quite soon. I think that, as I say, China does not want to kill the goose. China needs Hong Kong in order to go to the rest of the world through re-exports and use our financial markets, our stock exchange, and all the other things, all the other benefits they get from Hong Kong, and the same way from the rest of the world coming to do business in China. So I honestly do not feel that the laws will affect the financial community, will affect our way of life, and they're not going to. We have so many foreign companies here in Hong Kong. Why would they want to get rid of them? You have so many foreign companies in China today with different laws, with the civil law. We have the common law, independent judiciary, all these things that make us strong, and they're not about to abolish that. So Metro Finance, don't worry. Wait till you see and don't listen to everyone. For me, maybe I'm crazy, but I never listen to anyone. I just do what's in my heart and wait until I see everything. If I think it's wrong, trust me, I'll be yelling louder than anyone else. But I honestly think they won't. There'll be some things that'll change. But if you really just want to conduct your business and have a good life, you don't have to worry.
Thank you. The following question is from a member of the audience. What do you think about the government's subsidy schemes? Are they really trying to benefit the business giants or helping SMEs?
I think in general, because of this COVID-19, it's unprecedented, not just here, but in the world. The world is connected through globalization, but what's happened is because you can't travel today, I mean, you can't even leave Hong Kong without a 14-day quarantine, or every other city is the same problem. Everything's come to a standstill, and it's become a very domestic economy. And everybody knows, as a domestic economy, you cannot really survive for a long time. Government had no choice. Thank God they had enough reserves to come up with this 6-month payment for staff salaries up to $9,000. That saved a lot of SMEs, a lot of companies. Even with my own company, I don't mind telling you, everyone has applied for that, because otherwise we faced unprecedented times. Businesses were closing down. They couldn't pay the rent. There was everyone was stay at home. Everything was kind of at a standstill. And so I think that the government coming through with that really understood it, and really for almost every industry, all walks of life, to protect jobs. In this instance, I really think the government did a very, very good job. And I know they get criticized for many things, but this was one of the good things that they've really snapped to the attention and helped a lot of people.
Thank you. I think we only have time for one last final question, and this is from an audience member. How should the younger generation equip themselves in terms of talents and seizing opportunities?
I think young people today are very savvy because of the internet, because of online. I think that they should study more about technology, because technology is the future. And I know Hong Kong is behind in that. Shenzhen is a place that is, to me, as good as Silicon Valley, and in many cases better than Silicon Valley, further ahead. If that interests you, technology is something that can be applied or needs to be applied to every business, whether it's online shopping today, whether it's every healthcare, everything revolves around technology. And even a little country like Israel, is one of the leaders in the world in technology and innovation. And so Hong Kong itself, being next to Shenzhen, has that ability. And I think for young people, that's something you love. That's something you're on every day. And so we need to strengthen the education system in technology in Hong Kong, even the universities. We really need an overhaul of the Hong Kong system. And literally, young people will be part of it. You're young. You're the future. We're on our way out. It's you guys coming in. So it's up to you guys to really overhaul it in a positive way, the way we did when we were young. And that's why I say they're very bright young people. Some are misguided. When I see 14-year-olds getting arrested or 13-year-olds, I think something's wrong because somebody has pulled them in the wrong direction. That's why I'm kind of critical. I hate to see that. If somebody's older and they understand what they're doing, I respect their rights. But if somebody's that young, it means somebody's brainwashed them. And that I don't like to see. But for young people, don't kill your future. I mean, you've got a bright future ahead of you. The world is there for everyone. And if you don't like Hong Kong, you're always welcome to leave if you can get into another place. Or stay here and make it a better place.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Zeman, and thank you for all the questions, but I'm afraid the time for today is up. Once again, thank you, Dr. Zeman, for being here to enlighten us in this time. Stay tuned and join us for our next Insight Forum on the 8th of July, which will feature Professor Stephen Roach, Senior Fellow from Yale University, who will talk to us under the theme Pitfalls in a Post-Pandemic World, Deglobalization and Asymmetrical Normalization. And this brings today's session to a close. Thank you for being with us. Stay well and goodbye.